My wife sneaked into our son's room every night, so I set up a hidden camera to find out. Why? My name is Darius Thurman. I'm a long-haul truck driver living in a small, quiet town outside Augusta, Georgia. For years, I drove coast to coast hauling freight, while my heart stayed at home with my wife, Nia, and our son, Ethan. If you're just tuning in now, take a deep breath. What I'm about to tell you is something I never imagined would happen under my own roof while I was out on the road, trying to provide a better life for my family. What I discovered changed my life. Maybe it will change yours too, especially if you're a parent who has to be away from your kids for work. Sometimes we think we know the people closest to us, but there are things that only come to light when we least expect them. If my story connects with you, please hit the like button. It brings a little sunshine to this father's heart. Subscribe to the Long Haul Dad channel so you don't miss my next life stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love knowing which corner of the country or the world is listening. It almost started with a small change in Ethan's behavior. He'd always been a cheerful kid. The one who'd run to hug me the moment I pulled in after a trip. The one who told me everything that happened at school. The one who laughed out loud at cartoons. Pure energy, pure joy. At least that's how I remembered him. After a long trip, almost 3 weeks on the road, I came home and noticed something different. Ethan barely left his room to greet me. When he hugged me, he felt distant and there was a look in his eyes I'd never seen before. I told myself he was tired. Maybe he's sleepy, I thought. "Everything okay, son?" I asked, ruffling his hair like I always do. "Yeah, Dad," he replied quietly, not meeting my eyes. Nia stood in the doorway. He's been like that the past few days. A little quiet. It's just a phase, and he's growing up. "Come on, dinner's ready." That night I watched him at the table. He ate slowly with his head bowed and glanced at his mother, as if afraid of doing something wrong. Dark circles under his eyes made it look like he hadn't slept in a long time. "How's school going, buddy?" I tried. "Fine," he said without looking up. "And your friends? Is Kevin still coming over?" Nia stared at him with an intensity I noticed. Ethan swallowed hard before answering. After dinner, I went to tuck him in. When we were alone, I sat on the edge of his bed and asked again calmly if everything was okay. He took my hand and said something that chilled me. "Dad, don't tell Mom I talked to you." "What did you talk about, son?" I asked, my heart racing. Before he could answer, Nia appeared at the doorway. "Time for bed, Ethan. School's early tomorrow." The way Ethan flinched at the sight of her was not normal. I kissed his forehead and left the room, but my head was already spinning. I couldn't sleep that night. Something was very wrong. In the days that followed, I watched more closely. At school, his teacher said he'd grown quieter and less involved. At home, he spent most of his time alone, drawing or reading. Whenever I asked if he was all right, he said yes, but his eyes told another story. One afternoon, while Nia was at the grocery store, I sat with Ethan in the living room and tried to talk. At first he resisted, but slowly he began to open up. "Buddy, you can tell me anything," I told him. "Dad will always protect you." He hesitated, wringing his hands. In a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "I don't like it when you travel, Dad." "Why, son? Doesn't Mom take good care of you?" "No." He didn't explain, just lowered his head. I pushed a little more. "Did something happen when I was away?" Then he started to cry softly. I pulled him close and felt his small body trembling. Between sobs, he whispered, "Dad, please don't tell Mom." I felt something break inside me. What kind of fear had my boy learned? Why would he be so guarded around his own mother? Just then we heard the front door. Ethan immediately pulled away, wiped his tears, and changed his demeanor like someone had snapped on a mask. "I'm home," Nia called, walking in with grocery bags. She smiled when she saw us, but there was something unsettling about that smile. "What are you two up to?" she asked. "Just talking," I said, trying to sound natural. Ethan nodded and excused himself to go to the bathroom. When he came back, his eyes were still red, but he tried to hide it. During dinner, I watched them both. The way Ethan measured every word, the way his shoulders carried an invisible weight. Nia talked about school and the weather like any mother would. Later, as we were getting ready for bed, I asked Nia about Ethan's behavior. "Don't you think he's different? Quiet or more withdrawn?" She shrugged while putting on lotion. "It's a phase, Darius. Kids go through this. One day joyful, the next day quiet. He's been having nightmares. He hasn't been sleeping well. She said she hadn't told me because she didn't want to worry me while I was on the road. Her explanation sounded reasonable, but I remained unsettled. That night I woke several times thinking about Ethan. During one of those times I realized Nia wasn't in bed. I stepped into the hallway where only the small hall light was on, and saw Ethan's door ajar. Nia was inside. I froze in the hallway, trying not to make a sound. After about 30 minutes, she left the room and closed the door quietly. I confronted her. "What were you doing in his room at this hour?" "Darius, you scared me," she said, clutching her chest. "I went to check if he was sleeping okay because of the nightmares." He woke up agitated. I stayed and calmed him down. 30 minutes to check if he's sleeping? He woke up agitated? "Why are you asking that?" "I was just worried," she answered. I tried not to show my suspicion. We went back to bed, but I couldn't sleep. The next morning, after Nia took Ethan to school, I went straight to his room. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I needed a clue. Under the bed, I found an old teddy bear I'd given him years ago, torn in places with stuffing coming out. That puzzled me. Ethan always took care of his toys. On the fabric were dark stains that looked like dried tears. That night I stayed up on purpose. Around 11, Nia slipped out of bed and went to Ethan's room again. This time I waited a few minutes and crept to the door to listen. I heard muffled crying, Ethan sobbing quietly, terrified of making noise. A low, firm voice I recognized as Nia's said, "It's for your own good." What kind of discipline made my son cry through the night? In that moment, I made a decision that would change our lives forever. The next morning, I drove into town with an excuse that I had to handle some company business. My head buzzed with doubt. Was I overreacting? Was it really a phase? But I couldn't shake that muffled crying or the fear in Ethan's eyes. I walked into an electronics store and told the clerk I needed a small, discreet camera I could access from my phone. "Is this for home security, sir?" he asked. "Yes," I replied, my throat tight. "For my son's security." I left with a micro camera that could be hidden easily and set up through an app. I never thought I'd reach the point of installing a hidden camera in my own house to monitor my own wife. But my son's safety mattered more than anything else. When I got home, Nia was in the kitchen making lunch and Ethan was at school. The perfect time. "Did you get what you needed?" Nia asked, stirring a pot on the stove. "Yeah, I got everything sorted," I lied, slipping the bag with the camera into my jacket pocket. "I'm going to take a shower." I went into Ethan's room, scanning for the perfect spot to install the camera. I needed an angle that would capture the whole room but wouldn't be obvious. Finally, I decided to hide it on the bookshelf between some toys, small enough to go unnoticed but perfectly positioned to capture everything. With trembling hands, I set up the camera and tested it on my phone. It worked perfectly. Relief washed over me, mixed with a pang of guilt. Relief that I might finally uncover the truth. Guilt for invading my own home. But deep down, I knew this was the right thing to do. That night at dinner, I tried to act normal, though my stomach churned. Ethan stayed quiet, only answering when spoken to, his eyes nervously flicking toward his mother. Nia, meanwhile, chatted casually about neighbors, shopping, and weekend plans, perfectly normal. "I have to head back out on the road the day after tomorrow," I said, watching their reactions. "Long trip down to Texas." Ethan's shoulders slumped slightly. I noticed a flicker in Nia's eyes, almost imperceptible, but there. "How long this time?" she asked, her calm tone now feeling suspicious. "At least 2 weeks, maybe more," I replied. Ethan dropped his head further, picking at his food. Nia smiled faintly. "We'll miss you, won't we, Ethan?" He nodded, silent. After dinner, I took him to bed. Once alone, he grabbed my hand tightly. "Dad, do you really have to travel?" His voice cracked with desperation. "Yes, son. I need to work. But it will go by fast, and I'll be back soon, okay?" He didn't answer. He just hugged me as if he never wanted to let go. In that moment, I knew I had done the right thing by installing the camera. The next day, I spent as much time as possible with Ethan. Ice cream after school, catch in the yard, cartoons on TV. I wanted him to know he could trust me, that I was there for him. That night, before he fell asleep, I sat on the edge of his bed. "Ethan, you know you can tell me anything, right? Even if someone tells you not to?" He glanced toward the door, as if checking if we were truly alone. "I know, Dad," he whispered. "Is there something happening that makes you sad or scared?" I asked gently. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he held them back. I can't, Dad." "Why not, son? Why? His voice failed. Then we heard footsteps in the hall. Nia approached. It's bedtime for you too, she said, standing in the doorway. You need your rest for your trip tomorrow, Darius. I hugged Ethan one last time, whispering, I love you, son. I will always protect you. I left the room and Nia followed me back to our bed. I pretended to sleep, but every fiber of my being wanted to confront her. About an hour later, when she thought I was deeply asleep, she quietly slipped out. I grabbed my phone and opened the camera app. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. On the screen, I saw Nia enter Ethan's room and gently close the door behind her. Ethan lay awake, shrinking under the covers, already expecting the visit. Mom, please, he whispered. I was good today. You know that doesn't matter, right? Nia said, her voice cold and distant. This is for your education. My blood ran cold. I watched her pull masking tape from her robe and move toward the bed. Ethan's little eyes widened in fear. Please, Mom, he pleaded softly. Shh, she whispered, putting a finger to his lips. The neighbors can't hear and neither can Dad. She tore a piece of tape and pressed it over his mouth. My 8-year-old boy silenced. I almost dropped the phone. That's better, she said. Now no one will be bothered by your crying. Then she pulled out a hard-soled slipper. Ethan tried to plead with his eyes, silent tears rolling down his cheeks. This is for your own good, she continued in that icy, unfamiliar voice. One day you'll thank me for teaching you discipline. What came next was unbearable. She struck him with the slipper, not light taps, but hard, repeated blows, all the while whispering for him to learn his lesson. Ethan couldn't scream. His body convulsed with every hit. I watched his small shoulders shake with silent sobs, tears soaking his pillow, and saw the pain and resignation in his eyes, as if this had been routine. I wanted to rush in, stop her immediately. But I needed proof, evidence to protect my son forever. So I continued to record, heart shattering with every second. This is for talking too much with your father today, she hissed between blows. You know you can't tell him our business. Finally it ended. Ethan huddled under the blankets, trembling with silent sobs. Remember our deal? She said, leaning over him. If you tell your father, it will be worse. She ripped the tape off his mouth. Now dry your face and go to sleep. I don't want to hear a sound, understand? Ethan nodded, terrified. Nia smoothed the blanket over him and left the room as if nothing had happened. I stayed in the darkness, phone in hand, tears silently streaming. How had I not seen this before? How could I have left my son vulnerable for so long? Minutes later, Nia returned to our bed. I feigned sleep, but I couldn't rest. Ethan was in danger, and I had to act strategically to protect him. All night I stayed awake, checking the camera. I watched Ethan clutch his broken teddy bear, crying silently, finally drifting off to exhausted sleep. I promised myself I would do everything to get him out of that situation. The next morning, I woke before Nia and made breakfast for Ethan. When he appeared, dark circles still etched under his eyes and a defeated expression on his face. My heart sank. Did you sleep well, son? I asked, trying to mask the storm inside me. Yes, Dad, he replied automatically, avoiding my gaze. Ethan, I crouched to his level. Look at me. He slowly lifted his eyes. All the fear and pain I had seen before reflected back at me. I love you very much, I whispered, holding his small hands. And I'm going to do everything to protect you. Do you believe me? For a moment I saw a flicker of hope. Then footsteps approached. Nia entered, greeting us cheerfully as if nothing had happened. Already having breakfast? That's great. She poured coffee and buttered toast. Playing the loving mother she pretended to be hours earlier. I ignored her, focusing on Ethan. After breakfast, while Nia drove him to school, I rushed to make copies of the video. I transferred them to a flash drive and uploaded them to the cloud. I couldn't risk losing a single frame of evidence. Back on the road, every mile away from home felt like agony, knowing my son might be alone with his abuser. But now I had a plan. The camera would keep watching, and I would act with the full force of the law. That night, parked at a rest stop, I checked the camera. My fears were confirmed. Nia entered his room, closed the door, and the abuse began again. Cry quietly, she whispered, applying tape to his mouth. Your father can never know this. I knew then I couldn't wait. My son would not spend another night there. Trembling, I called my brother-in-law, Kevin. Darius, everything okay? You don't usually call this late, he answered, worried. Kevin, I need your help. It's an emergency. It's about Ethan. Is he sick? No, it's worse. Go to my house right now and get him. Invent any excuse, just get him away from Nia. There was a long pause. Then Kevin said, Yes, you can trust me. I'll get him. I hung up praying he could act fast. I drove straight home, ignoring everything else, the delivery, the job. Nothing mattered but my son. An hour and a half later, Kevin called. Darius, I have Ethan. I told Nia I needed his help with a surprise gift for Chloe. She let him come. He's safe. Can I talk to him? Kevin handed me the phone. Dad, came Ethan's small voice. Hey, buddy, I said, my heart swelling. Are you okay with Uncle Kevin? I'm okay, he whispered. Dad, are you coming to get me? I am, son. I'm driving home now. I'll be there as fast as I can. Stay with Uncle Kevin. He'll take care of you. I will. Thank you, Dad. That simple thank you broke my heart. My son was thanking me for protecting him from cruelty that should never have touched him. After checking on Ethan, Kevin and Chloe and I watched the videos together. The marks on his back, the evidence of abuse, it was all there. We needed to act fast before Nia realized what was happening. Soon, Ethan appeared in the hallway. He ran to me sobbing and I held him tightly, whispering, It's all right now, son. Dad's here. No one will hurt you anymore. I sat there with him in my lap, his face buried in my chest, small hands clutching my shirt. Kevin and Chloe gave us space. I felt his trembling body slowly calm. Buddy, I said softly, you don't have to be scared anymore. I know what was happening while I was away, but I promise from now on I will protect you. Always. I know what Mom was doing to you at night. Ethan's body stiffened instantly and I saw panic flicker across his eyes. Dad, she'll be mad if she knows I said something. You didn't say anything, son. I found out on my own, I reassured him, keeping my voice calm. Before I traveled, I installed a camera in your room. I saw everything that happened. Ethan looked at me, confused, trying to process my words. You saw? I saw her, son. I saw everything she did to you, the tape on your mouth, the hitting. He lowered his head, shame flickering across his small face. I'm sorry, Dad. Those two words nearly broke me. My son apologizing for being a victim of abuse. I cupped his face in my hands, forcing him to meet my gaze. Ethan, listen closely. You didn't do anything wrong. Nothing. What Mom did was wrong. Very wrong. No adult, not even a parent, is allowed to hurt a child like that. Do you understand? He nodded slowly, though I could see the lingering doubt in his eyes. Years of fear and manipulation wouldn't vanish overnight. How long has this been going on, son? I asked gently. He bit his lip, hesitating. Since you started taking those long trips. She said it was to teach me to be a good boy while you were away. She said if I told anyone, nobody would believe me, that I'd be lying for attention. I closed my eyes, a physical ache gripping my chest. This had been going on for almost a year and I hadn't realized it. All those trips, all those nights, I had left my son alone with his abuser. And when I was home, did she do this too? I asked softly. Not as much, he admitted. Only when you were asleep. She'd wait until you were deeply asleep and come into my room. But it was quicker because she was afraid you'd wake up or hear anything. I remembered all the mornings I had found him looking defeated, with dark circles under his eyes, lacking energy. How could I have been so blind? When she hit you, why did she say she was doing it? I pressed. Ethan shrugged. Sometimes it was because I talked to you too much or left my school bag in the wrong place or didn't eat all my dinner. He paused, swallowing hard. But most of the time, she said she didn't need a reason, that it was so I could learn to be strong. A tear escaped my eye, quickly wiped away. I had to be strong for him. Now, Ethan. Look at me, I said, waiting until his eyes met mine. As of today, this is over. You will never go through this again, never, I promise. And don't worry about Mom, she won't be able to hurt you ever again. You won't be alone with her. At that moment, Kevin returned with a tray of hot cocoa and cookies. Chloe followed, her eyes still red from crying. Look, Ethan, Kevin said, forcing a smile. Aunt Chloe made hot cocoa for you. Ethan glanced at the tray, then at me, as if seeking permission. Go ahead, son. You must be hungry. He hopped off my lap and went to the table where Chloe helped him pour the cocoa into a colorful mug. Once he was settled, Kevin gestured for me to step outside. So, Darius, what are you going to do now? I'm going to the precinct, I said firmly. Show the videos, file a report, and request a restraining order for Ethan. I'll do everything necessary to keep my son safe. You know this is going to destroy your family, right? That Nia could go to jail? Kevin asked, concerned. I looked him in the eye. Kevin, I know she's your sister, but what she did, what she's been doing for months, already destroyed our family. A mother who tortures her child doesn't deserve that title. If the justice system decides she should go to jail, so be it. He nodded slowly. You're right. It's just hard to accept that your own sister could do something like that. But Ethan comes first. He's just a kid. Exactly, I agreed. I failed him once. I won't fail him again. What can I do to help? Kevin asked. You already are, I said. By giving us shelter. By protecting Ethan when I couldn't. I just need you and Chloe to stay with him while I go to the precinct. I don't want him to go through this right now. Of course, he can stay here as long as necessary. Inside, Ethan was talking quietly with Chloe, almost relaxed for the first time in weeks. I knelt beside him. Buddy, Dad needs to step out for a few hours to take care of some important things. You'll stay here with Uncle Kevin and Aunt Chloe, okay? The panic returned to his eyes. You'll come back, right, Dad? Promise? Of course, son. I promise. I'm just making sure you're safe. Chloe offered a gentle suggestion. Ethan, how about we watch that superhero movie you love while your dad takes care of things? He smiled faintly, reassured. I hugged him one last time before leaving. On the way to the precinct, Nia called repeatedly. I ignored the first few calls, then answered on the fifth try, buying time. Hello? Darius! She exclaimed, sounding relieved. Thank God, I've been trying to call for hours. Kevin took Ethan last night and hasn't brought him back. I'm worried. Her words made my blood boil. She was worried about the son she had abused. He's fine, I said, keeping my voice steady. He's still with Kevin. I evaded her further questions. I'm taking care of some business. I'll be home later. And I hung up. At the sheriff's office, a detective listened attentively as I recounted everything. When I showed the videos, she shook her head, disturbed. Mr. Thurman, this is a serious case of domestic violence against a minor, she said. We'll take every necessary measure. First, we'll file a detailed report and request an emergency protective order to keep your wife away from the child. You can file for temporary custody immediately. And with this evidence, it's very likely the judge will grant it. I spent hours giving statements, filling forms, and uploading the videos. A representative from the Department of Children and Family Services monitored the case. Time moved slowly and quickly all at once. When I finally left, I had the police report and protocol for the protective order in hand. I learned that Nia had been officially served. She reacted angrily, claiming I had made it all up. I expected nothing less. Back at Kevin's, Ethan was calmer, watching TV with Chloe. When he saw me, he ran and hugged me tightly. I promised you, didn't I? I said, holding him close. Yes, Dad. And Dad always keeps his promises. That night, when I tucked him into the guest room, he asked me to stay until he fell asleep. I lay beside him in silence for a few minutes. Dad? He whispered. Mom won't hurt me anymore, right? No, son. Never again, I promised, holding his hand. Dad is going to protect you, always. You know, Dad, I prayed every night for you to find out. I was so scared to tell you. I'm so sorry I didn't find out sooner, son. I'm so sorry. It wasn't your fault, Dad, he said, wisdom beyond his years shining in his voice. Mom said it was our secret, that everyone would think I was lying. Even you might think I was making it up. Never, Ethan, never. You can always tell me everything. I will always believe you. He smiled faintly, the first genuine smile I'd seen in a long time. Soon after, he fell asleep holding my hand. I stayed there, watching him rest in peace for perhaps the first time in weeks, vowing to do everything to rebuild our lives and give him the childhood he deserved. The next day, my lawyer called. Mr. Thurman, the judge has granted your petition for temporary custody. You have exclusive custody of Ethan until the case is adjudicated. Your wife will only have supervised visitation in a neutral location, under court-appointed supervision. A huge weight lifted from my shoulders. It was only the beginning of a long legal battle, but it was a crucial first step. Ethan watched me from the doorway, hope and fear in his eyes. Dad, are we going to be okay? I opened my arms. He ran to me and I held him tightly, feeling determined. Yes, son, we are going to be okay. I promise. The weeks that followed were filled with adjustment and healing. We rented a small apartment near Kevin and Chloe, which became our safe haven. I changed my work schedule, taking only regional deliveries to be home each night. Ethan began therapy 3 times a week with Dr. Ramirez, a specialist in childhood trauma. Slowly, he began to open up, expressing the fear and pain he had carried silently for so long. One day, after an intense session, Dr. Ramirez spoke with me alone. "Mr. Thurman, Ethan is making progress, but the trauma runs deep. He lived in constant fear for nearly a year, always anticipating when his mother would hurt him. Will he ever overcome this?" I asked anxiously. "Children are surprisingly resilient when they have the right support," she said. "The fact that you acted quickly when you discovered the abuse was crucial." I swallowed hard. "I should have noticed sooner." "Abusers are skilled at hiding their actions," she explained. "And from what Ethan told me, his mother constantly threatened him to ensure silence. He was led to believe he deserved it, that it was for his own good." I nodded, determined. "I'll always be there for him. No more long-haul trips." "That's essential," Dr. Ramirez agreed. "A constant protective presence is key to his recovery." Ethan began to feel safe again, and gradually the nightmares lessened. One afternoon, while working on homework, he asked me quietly, "Dad, Mom didn't love me, did she?" I put down my pencil and faced him fully. "Why do you ask, son?" He shrugged, fighting back tears. "Because she hurt me so badly. You only hurt people you don't love, right?" I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Ethan, what Mom did to you has nothing to do with whether you're a good or bad boy. It never was. It has nothing to do with her love. None of this was your fault." He looked at me, a mixture of understanding and sadness in his eyes. I pulled him close, promising silently that I would always protect him, rebuild his world, and restore the childhood he deserved. "There are adults who are sick," I said, pointing first to my head, then to my heart. "They do very bad things because they don't know how to handle their feelings or problems." "So, Mom is sick?" Ethan asked, trying to understand. "In a way, yes," I replied gently. "It's not like the flu or a stomach ache. It's a sickness that makes someone hurt others, especially those who can't defend themselves. And that is very, very wrong." He was silent for a moment, absorbing my words. Then he asked the question I had been dreading. "Will she ever get better?" That was the hardest question to answer. I took a deep breath. "I don't know, son. Some people realize they're sick and get help. Others don't. But the most important thing is that you are safe now, and I will do everything I can to make sure it stays that way." "And if the judge says I have to go back and live with her?" His voice trembled. "That's not going to happen," I assured him, pulling him into a hug. "We have proof of what she did, and your well-being is the most important thing to the court. Dr. Ramirez is also helping explain to them that you need time to feel safe again." That conversation stayed with me for days. My little boy, trying to understand why his own mother could hurt him so cruelly. How does a child even process something like that? How do they heal? 2 weeks later, we received the news. Nia's petition to revoke the protective order had been denied. Dr. Ramirez's report, the videos, and Ethan's testimony, all given in a protected, supportive environment, were decisive. The judge not only maintained the protective order, but also temporarily suspended her supervised visitation. Nia would have to undergo psychological evaluation and mandatory treatment before any contact could be allowed. It was a significant victory, but I knew the fight wasn't over. The final custody hearing was still ahead, and Nia wouldn't give up easily. That night, as Ethan slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, I sat on the balcony of our small apartment and reflected on everything we had endured. The shocking discovery, the desperate rescue, the nightmares, the therapy sessions, the legal battles. It had been the hardest period of our lives, but also the beginning of our healing. I looked up at the stars, thinking of the future. It seemed a little clearer now, a little brighter. Ethan was starting to smile again, to play, to trust. I had found a new balance between work and family, and I prioritized what truly mattered. Though the road ahead remained long, for the first time in a long time, I believed we would be okay. My phone vibrated. It was Kevin, sending a photo from a barbecue at his house. Ethan was smiling, holding a marshmallow on a stick over the grill, his eyes shining with pure joy. Kevin's message read, "That smile is worth every battle, isn't it?" I replied with my heart full, "Every single one." Today, almost 2 years after that night I installed the camera in Ethan's room, our lives have changed completely. We live in a small, comfortable house with a yard where Ethan can play, and where we planted a vegetable patch together. I have a stable job as a logistics manager. No more long trips, and I'm home every night. Ethan is now 10 years old. The nightmares that once haunted him are rare. He still attends therapy, but only once a week, and Dr. Ramirez calls his progress remarkable. He has learned that what happened was not his fault, and how to recognize warning signs and ask for help when needed. At school, he is engaged again, has made new friends, and recently joined the soccer team. Seeing his joy when he scores a goal, hearing his carefree laughter with teammates, these are the moments that show me every fight, every sleepless night, every tear was worth it. As for Nia, the justice system ran its course. After multiple hearings and evaluations, she was found guilty of child abuse. She received community service, mandatory psychiatric treatment, and permanently lost custody of Ethan. She still occasionally tries to regain contact, claiming she has changed, but the judge wisely requires that any contact be pre-approved by Ethan and his therapeutic team. To this day, Ethan shows no interest in seeing her. When the topic arises, he grows quiet and often changes the subject. Dr. Ramirez explains this is healthy. He is protecting himself and setting boundaries, something he was denied for so long. Throughout this journey, one lesson stands out. Child abuse can happen silently right under our noses. Nia maintained the image of a perfect mother. Neighbors, family, teachers all believed it. Only her terrified son knew the truth. I learned to always pay attention to the signs. Ethan's behavioral changes weren't just a phase, they were silent cries for help. Cries I was slow to hear. Now I am vigilant, not only with Ethan, but with other children around me. I intervene when necessary because it's better to investigate than to allow another child to suffer in silence. At home, Ethan and I have built a foundation of trust. He can tell me anything without fear of judgment. Discipline is guided by conversation, logical consequences, and example, not fear, not punishment. He has grown into an empathetic, protective child. At school, he often stands up for classmates who seem vulnerable. "Everyone deserves to feel safe, Dad," he once said with a wisdom beyond his years. Recently, I spoke at a support group for single parents facing domestic violence. After sharing our story, a woman approached me, tears in her eyes. She had discovered her ex-husband was abusing their son during visits and had installed cameras like I did. My testimony gave her courage to act. Knowing that it's possible to rebuild life, that children can recover, that gave me hope. And that is what I carry every day. Hope. Hope that Ethan continues to heal, grows strong, and remains confident despite the adversity he faced. Hope that our story can help other families recognize and stop cycles of abuse. Hope that as a society we protect children. The camera I installed didn't just record the horror, it saved my son's life. It revealed the truth and gave me the tools to protect him. Now when I see Ethan running in the yard chasing the ball with our dog, I see a child finally living the childhood he deserves. The fear in his eyes has been replaced by joy and curiosity. His scared silence is gone, replaced by laughter and lively stories of his day. Sometimes as we read or watch TV together, he snuggles into my arms, a simple gesture that reminds me how far we've come. Our journey was not easy. There were days of doubt, despair, and guilt, nights when I wondered if we'd ever heal. But every smile, every nightmare-free night, every spontaneous hug reassured me. We are on the right path. To parents watching, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong with your child, it probably is. Pay attention to behavior, withdrawal, fear, physical signs. Don't ignore them. Talk, listen, observe. Not just what is said, but what is expressed through actions, drawings, and play. Violence is never discipline. It is abuse, plain and simple. We all have a duty to protect the vulnerable, to give a voice to those who cannot speak for themselves. Our story has a happy ending. Ethan is safe, healing, and growing, surrounded by love and respect. Not every child is so fortunate. Some suffer for years because no one intervenes. Don't let that happen. Be vigilant. Be the voice. Be the shield every child deserves. If this story touched you, give a like, subscribe to the Long Haul Dad's channel, and share where you're watching from and what time it is. Share experiences if you've faced a similar situation. Helping others heal is a gift. A big hug from my heart to yours. Thank you for listening, for caring, and for believing that change is possible.